Hello and welcome to another episode. In this video we have the new Renault Clio full hybrid, except it's not new, it's just a facelift version of a car which already exists. Regardless, if you are thinking about buying one, if you're in the process of buying one, or you've already bought one, the point of this video is to tell you as much about the new Renault Clio as I possibly can. So without further ado, let's get stuck in. I've had the Clio for a little over a week now, and I've saved the majority of the shooting to the very last 2 days that I actually have the car before I have to hand it back. And there's no other reason other than the fact that I wanted to live with the car, get under its skin to find out what it's really like. So let's start with the good. Powertrain and hybrid. The Clio has 145 brake horsepower thanks to a 1.6 litre petrol engine, which is mated to a 1.2 kilowatt hour battery. Now Renault claimed that assuming you've got a full tank and a fully charged battery, you can achieve 550 miles. Without looking at how the last person drove the car, when I got in it a week ago, it was giving me a little over 500-mile range, which represents only a 10% shortfall, which is right on the money. Renault also claimed that the Clio can achieve a combined return of over 67 miles to the gallon. Now I've been doing a lot of city driving as well as some suburban, and I've got over 60 miles to the gallon, which again represents a very small shortfall. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that you are definitely going to feel the frugality of the Renault Clio in your bank balance. Très bien Renault. 0 to 62 mile an hour comes up in a little over 9 seconds, but because the electric motor takes care of that initial launch, it can actually feel a lot nippier than the numbers suggest, which makes it ideal for nipping into those little gaps that you find on the motorway, as well as quick and easy entries and exits on roundabouts. I wouldn't go as far as to say it's a particularly sporty drive, but it is fun. It handles and grips really well around corners, which fills you with a lot of confidence. The car that we're driving today is the fully hybrid Techno trim. However, there is a standard petrol available if you fancied a manual gearbox. Some of the other equipment in the Techno include automatic aircon, reversing camera, ISOFIX point, a wireless charge pad, a 7-inch instrument cluster and infotainment screen with Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, front and rear parking sensors, lane keeping and lane departure warning, electric windows all around, hands-free keycard, auto headlights and wipers, LED headlights, folding mirrors and tinted rear windows. This particular car has some chrome trimmings as well around the mirror caps and the surroundings of the window, which is a refreshing look actually, because for the last decade almost every car in this segment has had some sort of night pack or a black pack, which essentially de-chromes everything. But in this I actually think that it shows off the accents in a very nice way. If you are interested in finding out a little bit more about the car or the finance packages, or even arranging a test drive, I'll leave the details to Renault Retail Group of Enfield and Romford in the description box down below. Special thanks to Renault and Enfield for loaning us this Clio. I must say I do really like the design of this car, especially from the front. I like what they've done with the grille. The overall look of the car is a lot more aggressive, a lot more chiseled, and I love what they've done with all the LED lights at the front. The rear has largely remained the same from the pre-facelifted model. On the inside, by French car standards, it's relatively tame, but very functional and in fact, a little grown up. It's uncomplicated and covered in physical buttons. Take the air conditioning controls for example. Sleek looking and very simple to use. 3 dials to control the fan speed, the temperature, and where you want the air to blow. The middle dial can also be pressed to hand the control over to the Clio in the auto mode. No touchscreen or haptic buttons here. Now granted, much hasn't changed in the way of updates in the interior, not from what I can tell anyway. The only noticeable change is the handbrake, which is now an electronic one, and it lives next to the auto hold function, which contributes to a easier in-town driving. But all in all, the cabin is a pleasant place to be. There's a handy little groove to put your key as well. With regards to the smaller screen, it kind of reminds me of a screen that Nokia would build. It's small by today's standards and delightfully uncomplicated. The software may not be the fastest or particularly clever, but this makes it non-intrusive to the driving experience, and it's subtly integrated into the interior ambience.
It evokes a sense of nostalgia for simpler, more user-friendly technology. Worth noting that the screen rocks a slightly matted screen, which helps minimize fingerprints. If you do want the bigger screens, both the driver display and the media screen, you can go for the Spirit Alpine model, where they will be upgraded to a 10-inch driver display and a 9.3-inch media display.
Perhaps Renault didn't feel the need to spend too much time and effort in developing it, seeing as most of us are going to probably use Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. Now, I'm fairly certain that the same cannot be said for what's going on underneath the bonnet. You can hear it from time to time, the engine engaging and disengaging, or the engine starts revving up to boost the power that goes into your battery. Now, the good news is that none of it really matters, because you as a driver don't need to do anything. It's all taken care of for you. There is no plugging in and there's no charging to do yourself. All done under the bonnet by the car by itself. You don't have to press a button. There's no style of driving that you have to adopt. And of course, you don't have to physically plug it in with the charge cable. Throughout the ownership of the car, all you'll ever need to do is add fuel, put it into drive, put your music on, and just drive. It'll drive on EV, it'll drive on combustion, it'll just do what it needs to do to try and give you the most efficient drive as it possibly can. If you're coming from a combustion engine car and you're toying with the idea of EV, or in the case of the Clio, a hybrid, the good news is that there is no getting used to it. You'll never know the difference. You might hear it, you'll reap the benefits of it, but don't have to do anything different. Fear not. In some areas, if you did want to take matters into your own hands, you can do so. One of the ways you can do that is putting the gear shifter into B, brake mode maybe. I don't know what it stands for, but essentially what it does is it adopts this style of one pedal driving. And this is something that I've touched on various other EVs that I've driven and hybrids. What it does is when you take your foot off the accelerator, the car almost starts braking, and that recuperation just helps put power back into the battery, what would otherwise be lost during braking, all in the aid again to maximize the battery aspect of this hybrid, thus giving you the most efficient drive. You also have this little, what looks like a snowflake button. You press that and this engages your multi-sense mode, which lets you select from My Sense, Sport and Eco, basically different driving modes.
From a practicality point of view, the space in the rear of the Clio is okay. With me in the driver's seat in the most comfortable position at 5'11", the space for the rear passengers is, well, snug from a knee and a headspace point of view. However, if you have young children, I don't think they'll have much to complain about. The boot is rated at 300 litres with a tyre inflation kit. Although you might struggle with anything bigger than a travel buggy, it's a good size for your weekly shop.
The steering is very ideal for those of you who are planning on driving the Clio in and around town because it's very light. When you do speed up, get onto the motorway, it does get heavier. And it does incredibly well at keeping out all the nasty vibrations, which driving around in Hertfordshire, let me tell you, there is a lot of cracks, potholes, and just shoddy roads.
In terms of driving dynamics, power is okay, but for me, what really stands out in the Clio is just how much it's grown up since the last one I drove back in 2005. It feels a lot more planted. I imagine the extra weight that it carries probably contributes to that, and although this one has 17-inch wheels, it rides potholes and cracks in the road really well. Visibility is great all around, and there are little quarter panels by the A-pillars to further enhance visibility when manoeuvring. Seats are comfortable and the driving position is excellent.
Now, of course, no French car is complete without it having something a little... What's the French for? What on earth were you thinking?
That's right. At night, you have lights that illuminate under the car for when, you get a call from the Fast and Furious casting crew.
So, what are the not-so-goods? The music system does need a little bit more oomph. Growing up, listening to music was a big thing, and it still is even to this day, assuming that the youngsters of today can get insured on a car like this. I think it is going to be something that they're going to look for, and sadly an upgraded sound system isn't available in the range topper, the Esprit Alpine either.
The reversing camera is exposed, which means that it can become dirty very quickly, and coupled with the fact that it's quite low res and has a fisheye lens, it can make it a little hard to use. And lastly, it's the old remote that we find by the steering column. I don't have a problem with the way it works per se, but given that there are blank buttons on the steering wheel, surely it just makes more sense to bring the controls from the remote onto the steering wheel. Now the mid-range spec, the Techno, which this is, costs around £24,000, which by today's standards, by today's market, is very competitive. And at the time of shooting this video, they've got 0% finance available on 2-year PCP deals. Again, if you want to find out more, all the links will be in the description box down below.
So there you have it. That was the Renault Clio Techno full hybrid. I hope you enjoyed this video, found it informative, useful, or at least entertaining. Was your favourite part about the car the under the floor lighting as well? Mine too. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.